California, Mr. Cárdenas.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to H.R. 8205, the so-called Keeping Violent Offenders Off Our Streets Act. While I have many concerns with this bill, my primary concern is that it was designed to target nonprofit bail funds, which help defendants who cannot afford bail themselves to obtain pretrial release that a court already determined to be appropriate. Research has found that socioeconomic inequity often makes it harder for people of color to afford bail, and that they are more likely to receive higher bail amounts than their white counterparts. And I want to clarify, the color orange has not ever been considered a person of color. As a result, we find people of color in pretrial detention at disproportionately high rates, not out of being guilty, but rather due to poverty. Nonprofit bail funds work to address these disparities and increase fairness in our criminal justice system. Unfortunately, today's bill turns a blind eye to this and instead perpetrates the myth that bail reform has increased violent crime, which data consistently disproves. Understanding that, it should come as no surprise that the Keeping Violent Offenders Off Our Streets Act does nothing to address violent crime. Rather, the bill applies criminal penalties for misconduct that is already covered by federal wire fraud and money laundering statutes, applies to any entity that posts bond, including non-criminal immigration bonds, and affirms a bail system that we know deepens inequity and cycles poverty. This bill is a distraction from the fact that, thanks largely to Democratic policies, violent crimes and homicides are down across our country. It is also a distraction from real bipartisan work that we could be doing to bring communities relief and perpetrators of violent crimes to justice. For this reason, at the appropriate time, I will offer a motion to recommit this bill back to committee. If the House rules permitted, I would have offered the motion with an important amendment to this bill. My amendment would direct the Department of Justice to provide funding to state, tribal, and local law enforcement agencies to hire, train, and retain detectives, investigators, and victim services personnel to investigate unsolved violent crimes. In recent years, the percentage of violent crime and homicide cases solved by law enforcement agencies has declined significantly across the country. To give a clearer picture of what that means, today, nearly half of murders in the United States go unsolved, depriving victims of healing and grieving families of justice. If Republicans truly want to address violent crime, this amendment would offer a solution by improving clearance rates for violent crimes, bringing perpetrators to justice, radically improving community safety, and enhancing supportive services for victims. I ask unanimous consent to insert into the record the text of this amendment. I hope my colleagues will join me in voting for the motion to recommit.
The gentleman yields back. The
Thank you.
gentleman from New York is recognized. The gentleman from New York